Welcome to this video. I'm Ingo from Roast Travels, and today we have a very special guest. He's the 2 times German champion in coffee roasting. Welcome, André Kirberg.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. And once you are here, I would like to take the opportunity to talk about roasting championships, because this is something you obviously have experienced and know quite a bit about it. And for most viewers, that might be something new, something that they don't know from behind, that they don't really precisely know what it's about. Therefore, I would like to deep dive a bit into that topic. But first, before we start, you can tell me a little bit about your coffee story, about your coffee journey, how you started until the point where you became then roasting champion.
Yes. Actually, I've been quite interested in coffee for many years, starting back in 2013 when I was working in a high-end classical cocktail bar. The thing that interested me most at the beginning was, of course, latte art, because I was preparing coffee and my colleagues there were quite refined in doing latte art, like the basic motifs that are out there. And it always triggered me to learn that as well. And then in early 2016, I stumbled into a specialty coffee shop for the first time. And then when I had my first Kenyan filter coffee and saw the differences and nuances in taste that coffee can have, that really struck me like lightning. And after that, I became a seasoned nerd in the coffee sector. And few years later, when I was doing the first cafe with my wife and business partner together, that's when we started to be professional specialty coffee people.
Yeah. So you started a coffee shop, and meanwhile you transitioned it to a coffee roastery, or do you still have the coffee shop as well?
No, we don't have the coffee shop anymore. Like when Corona struck, we had the opportunity to get out of our contract. Yeah, because there was some things not going smoothly with our landlord as well. So we said let's do something else. Yeah. And then in August 2020, we started our coffee brand Seekind. Yeah. With a first roast that was then still done by Stefan from Ukushka Coffee in Stuttgart. Yeah. And in 2021, in April, I started a side hustle working in a roastery in the Lake of Constance, and that's where I started roasting myself, and where we developed the flavor profile and the different roasts that we have for our roastery now.
Yeah. And meanwhile, by the way, I'm going to put the link to Seekind Roastery down in the show notes, so that everybody can then have a look at your shop and maybe also order online. Do you ship all over Europe?
We ship all over Europe, apart from Switzerland. Unfortunately, that's a bit complicated to ship to Switzerland. But everything else in Europe, apart from the UK and I think Norway, okay, we can deliver coffee there.
Yeah, okay. But the Swiss people, they can do a daily visit to the lake, to the nice lake, and drink a coffee at your place. But then, so then you started roasting in 2021 yourself, and 2022 you became a German coffee roasting champion. What happened between that? How did this progress happen?
Well, when I went into coffee in 2018, 2019, I started my barista education at Goran Huber's Coffee Institute in Innsbruck. Went through all the modules there until the Barista Coffee Master, which is an extensive course more on raw green coffee and coffee roasting. Yeah. And sensory, and I did a lot of sensory classes, coffee roasting classes, the Kaffeemacher, Nikolai Fürst, and people who are really seasoned pros in their field. And so I got a lot of input from people who are really progressed really far in coffee roasting and coffee in general. And I just got my knowledge from them and adapted it to my coffee style. Apparently it worked out quite well.
What is your coffee style?
I like light roasts, but still developed. So what I don't like is what you see often in prominent roasteries. I'm not going to drop any names, but there are a lot of coffee roasters out there who produce underdeveloped coffee.
Yeah.
That's if you take a bean and you bite through the bean and you see some green inside, that's an underdeveloped coffee, and you can taste it. They tend to be a bit grassy, but vegetable-like, and I'm really sensitive to that, and I don't like that. So I like sweetness, and also at the moment there's a discussion started by, I think, Samos Mirke from the ZHW in Zurich, the Coffee Excellence Center. Is there actually any tasteable sweetness in coffee, or is sweetness something we perceive from the balance of sourness, bitterness, and body? So that's a really interesting discussion going on. And so the question is there actually any sweet flavors in coffee?
Yeah.
Everyone will argue, yes, there are, but it's something to be discussed, something really interesting. But I like balanced coffees. I talked with another German roaster on that topic at the Frankfurt Coffee Festival last year, and he brought up the term balance is complexity, and I think that's spot on. I like fruity light roasts, but then the fruitiness and the acidity needs to come from the green coffee itself, and shouldn't be roasted in by using the style of underdeveloping the roast a little bit so that you perceive more of these enzymatic aromas. I think that's something I don't like, and so I have nice developed roasts, still light, but I like sweetness in coffee if there's such a thing.
Yeah. Okay. If there's such a thing, I think everybody likes sweetness in coffee. That's kind of a target to reach. But I understand from your point, because you really were very fast in developing your roasting skills. You did some roasting workshops, but you also focused quite a lot on sensory skills. So what is the role of fine-tuning your sensory skill in your opinion?
Once you learn what happens during a roast when you change certain parameters, like if you want to have more acidity in coffee, you should always go with a higher gas setting quite early on in the roast. If you want to have more sweetness and balance in your cup, you normally try to stretch that drying phase a bit, and maybe even roast a soak. So a soak is when you let the heat of the roasting machine itself homogenize the roasting or the beans at the beginning, and then you start applying more heat and gas settings. And you can get, and that you learn in coffee roasting competitions, everyone is using the same coffee, so you have 16 different roasts of the same coffee. And once you have seen the variety of tastes that you can create with the same green bean, then you know that roasting is something that's really dependent on your style and your knowledge of sensory and what happens during what phase of the roast.
Interesting. Why did you, or how did it happen that you started to get into coffee roasting championships? So at a certain point, after probably a year of roasting, you said, okay, I want to go to the championships, or even earlier.
Yeah, not even that. As actually 4 or 5 months after starting roasting, I got the opportunity to take part in the German Brewers Cup. I was applying on the website without even knowing what was actually required of me, and then after a couple of weeks, like 6 weeks before the competition, I got a call from Nicole and Ansgar. Hey, do we want to compete in the Brewers Cup? Space just opened up, and I said, yeah, cool. And then after that, I started researching what is actually the requirement of you as a participant in the Brewers Cup, and okay. Interesting, and just went for it, and just had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people, and then I became hooked within the SCA coffee competition community, and which is everywhere you go is a really great bond of people who are just have a common goal to bring coffee onto another level, make it more accessible for the consumer. What I don't like in modern coffee is when people tell you don't use sugar, don't use milk. Like that can invite people to take the first sip it out, but you need to let people have time to adapt to the taste and break the habit they maybe have for 20, 30, even 40 years. And once you give them the time and the knowledge, and you talk to them and not talk down to them, that's when people start to enjoy coffee, and that's what unites the community in Germany and everywhere else I went.
So how was the ambition during such a roasting championship? Was it, if I understand you correctly, then it might have been kind of a supportive ambience, or was it very competitive?
It's really, really supportive. Everyone shares information. Everyone is trying to help each other. There's, of course, a certain level of competitiveness in the competition. Especially at the world stage, it's a lot more competitive at the world stage than it's at the national stage. But it's more about learning from each other. It's, you got 16 roasters at a remote location this year at Probat, so it's really, really cozy. There are not a lot of spectators. There's basically only the competitors and their coaches and the SCA and the judges, and so you get the opportunity to talk to your colleagues about what marketing efforts are you working on, what's actually working for you, what's not. There's a lot of coffee platforms out there. What are your experiences with those? There's talks about sourcing green coffee, about finding employees, and general problems that you encounter as a owner of a roastery. That's something that's discussed at these events, and so it's more like a friendly field trip than actually a competition.
Okay, interesting. So it really brings people together, and could be then something anybody who's into roasting could consider to do.
Yes.
How many participants were this year at the Roasting Championship? 16, okay.
Yeah. So anybody can compete, you just need to be a member of the SCA. There were quite a few competitors there who did it for the first time and said, I'm not really sure if I'm up for that. And then I know for the first year I was feeling the same way. But at the end of the day, you never know what can happen. Anybody can win. It's definitely in the second year, it was more applying knowledge and things I learned from the first year and the World Coffee Roasting Championship. But there's certain elements and techniques and tactics you can apply. That's true for any championship. But at the end of the day, anybody who participates has the chance to take home the trophy.
Yeah. Okay. And can you tell me a bit what is happening at the Coffee Roasting Championship?
So it's a 3-day competition. Day 1 is getting acquainted, talking about the rules, because the rule book is like that many pages. You talk to the judges, like any specifics, any aspects that are relevant to this year's competition. You then start with a sample roast of the coffee that will be used in the competition. That you will cup later on to create a roast plan that has to be quite detailed on all aspects of the roast. So you have to predefine your starting temperature, your end temperature, and even 0.1 degree difference can get you points deducted.
Okay.
You have to tell what the roast will taste like, even that you have never roasted that coffee on that machine before, which is quite tricky. And then you start the second day with the actual competition. You do the green grading, where you evaluate a green coffee sample for density, for how much water is in the coffee, screen sizing, and defect sorting. Then you got like a 300-gram sample with any defect you can imagine, and you have to really count every defect. So sometimes you have an unripe bean and you have 50 unripe beans in there, and you have to find all of them.
Yeah.
So the more you find, the more points you get, and you have to do that in a certain amount of time, and it's actually quite demanding to make it happen within the given time that you have, because it's not enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you have your competition roast, where you get 6 kilograms of the green coffee, and then you can decide, am I going to do 1 or 2 roasts? Most people do 2 roasts, and then you have to hand in 1.5 kilograms of the roasted coffee. But of course, in every green coffee, you always have some defects.
Yeah.
So you need to do some defect sorting before you hand in the coffee. And this year and the year before, I was always like finished in the last second. So I set time and put my coffee there when time was up.
Wow.
And if you go over time, you of course get a penalty and a point deduction for that. So, but luckily, I always managed to be right on time.
And you make a plan, and you have to stick to the plan. So for example, if you're starting to roast and you realize, the coffee is behaving a bit differently, what would you do then? Would you roast it to the point where it's perfect, or do you need to stick to the plan?
That was actually quite interesting this year, because I was last in the competition, which is normally a disadvantage, because you cup the coffee on the next day, and somebody who might be roasting at 11 in the morning, that coffee might have 5 hours more to degas and develop after roasting than my coffee. But this year I was last in the competition. But what I learned from the other competitors, because after roasting you do a color evaluation of the coffee, and you need to tell beforehand what color the coffee will have.
Yeah.
That's probably the most tricky part, which gives quite a lot of points. And I learned that everybody was way off their color scale, due to the fact that the coffee we got was low altitude but still high density, because the place in Colombia where it's growing is a really climately different from the rest of Colombia.
Yeah.
So it's a lot cooler at that level of altitude, and the coffee needed a lot more time to develop and created more density. And so I actually went over my roast plan. So I had a slightly higher end temperature than I had anticipated. But that was exactly what the coffee needed. I said my coffee was supposed to have a 135 on a Probot scale, and then a 133.
Yeah.
Which was a bit over, but still got me all 6 points for that category. So that was a huge impact why I could win this competition this year.
And how do you prepare for a championship?
Well, for the German Coffee Roasting Championship, you do a lot of green grading. So actually training to sort a sample of defected coffee in a given amount of time. And for the World Coffee Roasting Championship now, I am getting a lot of green coffee from colleagues and sponsors. And then I will go to a Gießen machine and then just roast coffee. Try to be within the competition time. Try to get the temperatures exactly right, because we are working with Cropster, and it's quite tricky to get like 180 degrees starting temperature exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to really know when to press the button, and that's something that you can train. And also creating a blend is something that we have to do for the World Coffee Roasting Championship. So we get 3 coffees, and we have to create a blend from that, using at least 10% of every coffee. And that's something you will be training as well. So you might have a pre-blend, you might have a post-blend. That's up to you, and that's something you can train beforehand to be exactly precise, make efficient use of your time, and get it all done in the given amount of time that you get.
Okay. So you will get a coffee there at the championships, and you don't know what kind of coffee it is.
No.
Therefore, you're kind of preparing now and trying to understand all the different kind of coffees on this Gießen machine. So that's it. Yeah. Okay. But it will be then in Taipei with a completely different climates than probably at the...
Yes. So that's something that I will be traveling there a few days early, and we are actually at the moment looking for a roastery there that has a 6 kilogram Gießen, so that we can actually train in the Taipei climate with the 6 kilogram Gießen beforehand. That's something that's still looking. So if anybody knows somebody in Taipei who's got a 6 kilo Gießen, like, hook me.
So think about those championships. I mean, it's quite a time invest, it's quite an effort for you. Why are you doing it? What are you taking out of a championship?
Yeah, well, preparing for a coffee championship, like especially the Worlds, is always quite expensive. You got the flights for yourself and your coach. You got your hotel, so it's always like a 10,000 euro cash invest, and then there's the time invest as well, which is probably the same amount of time that you invest for that. So it's definitely something that's important for your resume, for your visibility within the coffee community, for your credibility. It makes you attractive for big brands. So at the moment, I'm talking to 2 brands about being like the face for them, which also extends your own visibility within the coffee community. But also the aspect of learning a lot from your colleagues, learning a lot from the competitions, because coffee roasting at some point loses a bit of its romantic touch, becomes a production thing, it becomes a job at some point, even still a nice job, but if you throw in like the 5th batch of your F&B blend, that's something that's not super exciting. And then a coffee roasting championship or a championship in general is a good way to get out of your daily practice, get out there, keep on learning, because my experience is that with coffee, you never stop learning. There's so much going on, so many new things that we're learning every year. Somebody comes up with something completely new, and it's super exciting to be like in the top percentage of coffee brands out there, to be on a level to talk to these people who are out there in the coffee community, really driving it on kind of your same eye level, and having the opportunity to talk to people who you would normally not maybe meet, but not actually get into a conversation to. That's quite interesting.
Oh, nice. And another thing is then probably that you learn a bit about the roasting curves. I don't know, how was it for you? Because you've seen like some of the best roasters of the world working on one coffee, and did they all produce the same profile? Is there a perfect profile per coffee, or was it different, or was there any learning that you had out of the approach different roasters had?
Well, especially between the 1st and 3rd place, between Felix from Austria and Vishnu from Indonesia, there was a huge difference in their approach to roasting that coffee. I mean, Felix had a quite crisp, I think 8.5 minute roast with somewhere like minute 10 development time. And Vishnu had like a 14-minute roast for one of his coffees. Not really sure if it was the single origin or the blend, but you can look it up at the Cropster blog. Every year, Cropster is officially publishing an article on the World Coffee Roasting Championship with all the roast profiles from the first 3 competitors. And it's really interesting to see how different a coffee can taste, even if it's the same roasted coffee. I mean, even for the German Coffee Championships, we had one coffee, 16 different roasts. And that shows you that you can accentuate a lot of things by the style of your roasting with the same green coffee. That's why it's so interesting to, of course, any roastery can buy the same green coffee as Tim Wendelboe or any other names out there, and then just comparing yourself and what are they roasting, what am I roasting, what's maybe a third roastery doing with the same green coffee. That's what makes coffee so exciting, that it's an unfinished product that we get from the farmers all over the world, and then we can work with whatever they created for us and highlight certain aspects of the coffee. But you can never make a good roasted coffee from a bad green coffee, but you can always make a roasted coffee from a good green coffee.
Yes. Thanks a lot for sharing this. By the way, these two are the prizes you won for the German Roasting Championship. I hope there will be a third one then in November, where it will go to Taipei. When will be the World Championships?
The World Championship in Taipei is from the 17th until the 20th of November.
Yeah.
So there's still a bit of time left, and we're really excited to dive into the Taiwanese coffee culture, because in Asia coffee is totally different, and I think that that's also making coffee really exciting, because depending on where you are, you're producing for a market, you're producing coffee for a customer, and seeing different styles and ideas of coffee is something that always fires your imagination and teaches you a lot about what you could implement in your coffee routine and in your professional coffee business.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so thanks a lot for sharing everything, and all the best wishes. If people want to know more about you, about Seekind Roastery, or follow you, support you, where can they find more information about you?
You can go to our website, seekind.coffee, or you can go Instagram. It's also seekind.coffee. So any social media platform is just seekind.coffee.
Yeah, I will put a link in the description so that people can follow you and support you on your way. And then all the best wishes anyway, but then especially for November for the World Championship.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, André.